You already doing it? Thank you, Neil. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Climate Emergency Overview and Scrutiny. Are there any apologies for absence?
None received, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Okay, minutes of previous meeting on page 5. Any comments? Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. A little bit on page 10. Okay, can I have a show of hands that we approve the minutes? Okay, right. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, no declarations of interest. And Neil, are there any questions?
There are no questions of any of the 3 types, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Right, so we can go on to item 18, the transport update. And I think Adrian's going to introduce this. Microphone.
I'm out of practice, obviously. As you'll notice from the report, travel is the largest target saving in the Climate Emergency Action Plan. And when you look at the subsector analysis, road travel is the largest subsector of all across all of our emissions in the borough. The Climate Emergency Plan for Transport is a key part of the local transport plan adopted this year, within which reducing environmental impact is one of the 3 key themes. At the highest level, the strategy is to reduce emissions from petrol and diesel-powered vehicles through 3 things: reducing the need to travel, shifting the mode of travel from car to other less emitting modes, and to support the shift to electric vehicles, which emit less at the tailpipe and will increasingly be powered by low-carbon electricity. Helpfully, many of the things we're doing in the name of the Climate Emergency Plan are also things we're doing to contribute to other council priorities, such as cleaner air, public health, reducing congestion and improving road safety. We're making good progress in most areas, but there's still a lot to do. I think there's electric vehicles is doing a lot of heavy lifting in the target savings at the moment. I think there's scope to increase the saving in other areas. And over the course of this year, we'll be looking at how we can do that, not necessarily to reduce the benefit from electric vehicles, but hopefully to increase the benefit we can achieve overall. You've had a fairly comprehensive report, which the team have written. We look forward to your questions and observations. I think Rob's just going to say a few more words before we get into that. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. Just starting from the top of the report, there's 5 key areas that are highlighted. If I deal with the last one first, which is the local transport plan 4. So that was adopted in March this year. That's given us the focus really to ensure that all of our transport activities are focused around climate emergency and trying to ensure that all of our objectives are aligned. We're currently working through the action plan of the local transport plan, and so that's one of those things where we'll be looking out for trying to find more savings in terms of carbon in future. So the local transport plan, getting that adopted, was kind of a key action for us this year. But going through the rest of the sections of the CEAP, for electric vehicles, we've had quite a busy year in 2024. We had 44 new charge points came in, so we've got 346 publicly available charge points in the borough now. We've adopted our EV charging strategy, which helps outline how many charge points we should be aiming to have by 2030. And we're starting to work on a new project called Levi, which is aiming to deliver a lot of those charge points, up to or over 400 new charge points could be installed as part of that project. And lastly, on the electric vehicle side of things, we're looking at a trial with a company called Trojan, who are going to provide us with some cross-pavement charging solutions, which means people could charge using their own personal electricity supply rather than paying the higher charge that you might need to pay on normal charge points. We've had a couple of engagement events for electric vehicles as well, which were really well received, working with the rest of Berkshire on one at Winners Triangle and doing another one down at Elmsfield. Moving on to public transport, we've again made quite a few improvements. We've seen some strong recovery, so we're getting close to the kind of pre-COVID numbers now. We had a youth travel scheme, which gave £1 fares for youths, which gave us a really good increase in usage. And we're also currently undertaking a network review, which again is going to hopefully help us improve usage and also reach out to a lot of those people who have difficulties travelling by any other means, with kind of trying to meet social needs and some of our marmot goals at the same time. In terms of train travel, we've had a bit of a slower recovery, but you'll see in the graph in there that Twyford Station is actually above its pre-COVID levels and looks almost set to become our busiest station in the borough, which is interesting, but presents new challenges around people actually getting to the station. So we want them to do that as sustainably as possible. Then just briefly on active travel, we adopted RLC WIP a couple of years ago now. We've got 4.7 million so far from Active Travel England for a number of different activities. One of those being the Woodley to Reading route, which we're aiming to implement from January. And then we're looking at a section of the Reading Road scheme, which we'll be using our latest grant for, hopefully starting next summer in terms of delivery. I've also had some additional investments in terms of pedestrian crossings, toucan crossings, some changes to speed limits, and also some school route studies. So we're trying to establish how we can help people travel to school more sustainably. From the My Journey side of things, I just wanted to highlight we've engaged with 36,000 people. There is almost definitely some doubling up there. So that's 36,000 interactions, but potentially some of those are with the same people, depending on which activity that was. But we did have a very successful Beat the Street activity, which 14,000 individuals took part in. And Love to Ride and Mode Shift involved a lot of people as well. And also our road safety shows, which are really valuable, I think, for helping children get around the borough, reached 8,500 children, which is really good. So one thing Adrian mentioned earlier was about our data. So we're trying to improve some of our monitoring processes, trying to get some more real-time data where we can actually measure number of pedestrians and cyclists as well as vehicles. So we'll be working on that throughout this year, and hopefully next year we'll be able to set ourselves some slightly different targets based around actual figures rather than what we currently use, which a lot of that is survey-based. And because they're mostly based on national surveys, quite a lot of our data tends to be regional rather than being focused specifically on Wokingham. To support that, TFSE, Transport for the South East, have also started their own regional travel surveys. So they do go down to the level of borough. So we do get some much more granular information, which will be really useful for us going forwards. That's not in the report because it's only recently come forward to us from TFSE. And then aside from that, we've done our own surveys, again with My Journey, speaking to schools, speaking to the people who've moved into new developments, and also speaking to workplaces to try and establish how they travel, why they travel that way, and how we can help them to travel more sustainably. So those results are still being processed, but will hopefully give us some insights where we can try and improve our practices in different areas. And then the last point, which I haven't talked about yet, is the road freight strategy. Unfortunately, this is one area where we haven't really made any progress. We've got a lot of different priorities in the team, and so we just haven't been able to get around to it yet. We have had some discussions with e-cargo bike delivery companies or company who were looking to initially move into Reading and then hopefully spread into Wokingham at a later date. Unfortunately, their Reading rollout didn't happen for a number of different reasons, I believe. So we're still kind of hoping that that will come forward in future, but at the moment that's temporarily on hold, I think. But I think that's kind of it from me in terms of an update for now. So if anyone wants to give us any questions, that's right. Thanks.
Peter.
Thank you, Chair. My main questions relate to the section on train travel. It's encouraging to see use of the train increasing. Obviously not back to pre-COVID levels apart from Twyford. I'm guessing because working patterns have changed dramatically. People are doing a lot of work from home. The report talks about a GWR passenger survey completed in October. I assume the October just passed. So when will that passenger survey be published, and can the committee have sight of that passenger survey?
So the results.
The report talks about some additional parking spaces. Is that an identified additional area for parking? Is that funded? Do we have a timescale for that?
Sorry, I didn't use my microphone last time. So at present, that's specifically identified the parking spaces in the existing Twyford station. There's an area called the Coal Yard, which GWR have plans to expand. At the moment, they don't have any funding to do it. So we're in discussion with them about how we might be able to help support that. And if we can provide more parking spaces as part of a comprehensive package, then we would do. But we obviously don't want to encourage parking and not do anything else at the same time. So, but yeah, those discussions are ongoing, basically.
Okay, my understanding is the Coal Yard has approximately 50 additional spaces. It'll be interesting to see the survey, because the feedback I've had from people, I mean, people in Finch Hampstead travel up to Twyford to use the train service, that the demand is significantly more than 50 parking spaces. And if we're serious about supporting Twyford as a regional hub of transport, that we should be doing a lot more than 50 spaces. But let's wait for the survey to come through, and let's see if we can perhaps identify more parking.
Adrian?
You're absolutely right, Peter. I think everybody knows that parking a car at Twyford is extremely difficult at the Twyford station. Because this is the climate emergency session, it's important to stress that car is not the only way to travel. And we need to look at improving the bus service to Twyford. We need to look at making the cycle routes to Twyford safer. There are options for doing that. But ultimately, yes, we're going to need to do something about car parking as well. I've answered a couple of questions in full council about that, and you can take a look back at what I said there. But at this stage, obviously, it's a good idea to see what the data is telling us and then work out what we're going to do. Fundamentally, parking at the station really should be the responsibility of the train company, and they seem both unfunded and disinterested, but we will work with them on that. And I have said to the team that there's a premium on investment in travelling to Twyford station, because we're not only creating sustainable ways of travelling to the station, we're creating sustainable ways of travelling to a sustainable way of travelling, if you see what I mean. So we kind of get two climate emergency points for our buck, and so this is a priority for us. It's just quite a difficult nut to crack in a period when we've got very little funding ourselves.
Beth?
Thank you, Chairman. Rob, if I could ask you a couple of questions. The first around bus travel, and I wondered whether you took into account any of the travel made by Redibus and Keep Mobile. A huge amount of older people travel around on those buses, both into town to do shopping, that sort of thing, but also on trips outside of the area. Their figures might be interesting, and Redibus have just had their AGM, so they will have some stats. The other thing is about EV charging. I have a mobility car, and I would love to have an electric car. At the moment, I've got a hybrid, which is the next best thing to useless there is if you're only going short journeys, which I am. But I don't want to sit for 2 or 3 hours at a charging station a mile from my home. And I've been talking to Catherine about the pavement parking ones. How quickly do you think they will be in place and available? And I'm asking that question because I'm due to change my car next year, and I select it just after Christmas.
And can I add, and what will be the sort of cost of those charges?
So in terms of bus travel, I don't know whether you're aware of what data we use that on, Annie. Sorry.
So this one is just on our commercial services and our funded services. We have recently done a transport network review where we have looked at things like Redibus and all of kind of our volunteer car services. We actually had an ONS on that about 10 days ago, I believe. So if you want us to forward you that information, we can do.
I think it would be quite interesting to have, because it involves quite a lot of older people.
It does. We did a social needs-based review of the entire transport network. So we looked at older groups as well as disability groups and various different needs across the borough, as well as low income. And we fed that all into bus network review, which is coming up for retendering. So we're looking at how we can support the social needs side as well as the bus network.
Thank you.
Right, and so with the EV, I was just trying to look up to see if I could find the price, but I haven't been able to do it in time. So the company that we're working with, we still haven't finalised the contract, so there are some negotiations still going on, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But we would expect the full rollout within 2 years, so they'd be starting early next year, and it will take a couple of years to get all kind of 400 out. Initially, they'll be working on some requests that we've had. So when we get a request from a resident, we kind of ensure that they don't already have their own off-street parking, because that's where they should be providing their own charge points, and obviously it's cheaper for them as well. And then we make sure there's enough footway space and that kind of thing, just to make sure it's feasible. And then the company will then come along and do their own assessment, make sure there's power in the area and that kind of thing. So generally, starting from next year, they would be rolling out. The first batch, I think there's about 50 in the initial list that's currently being assessed. So when that starts getting up and running, they'll be going through first. But then, yeah, get your request in, and we'll get you in soon after, hopefully. In terms of the cost, they do cost something in the region of 40p per kilowatt hour, which is obviously quite a lot compared to what you're paying at home, which is why we're trying to look at this Trojan option as well. So Trojan obviously won't work for free. So they have a £50 a month subscription, which for a low mileage user probably isn't worth your while. But if you are a high mileage user, I believe the cut-off's around 7,000 or 8,000 miles. If you're doing more than that number each year, you will actually save money by paying the subscription and then charging overnight, because you can get as low as sort of 5 or 6p, depending on your provider. The problem we've got is that ongoing issue with there is VAT charged on top of publicly available charge points, as well as the supplier wanting to recoup their investment and all that kind of thing. So there's always a markup on what they're paying for the electricity, unfortunately.
I was just going to ask a sort of supplementary to that the Trojan posts, those are for individual, I mean, they're for if you've got somewhere to park outside your house. I mean, if you're down a footpath, that's no use, is it?
No, basically. Yeah, I mean, they'll run a cable from your house to, a footway nearby, but obviously you can't go over other people's land very easily, and we can only go over highway land because we can approve that.
Caroline.
Thank you. On page 33, and you have mentioned the road freight, reducing that, and that's not going anywhere. What is the main barrier to this starting, or even, I just wondered what's causing the problems?
It is just pretty much capacity within the team, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
So prioritising other things ahead of that.
Okay.
There's always something else crops up, so it just keeps getting pushed down the line. But yeah, it is something we want to. One thing we're doing with the action plan for the whole of the LTP is listing out all of those new policies and strategies that we need, and then trying to prioritise them based on what's going to give us the biggest impact in terms of both carbon and also road safety. And that.
Thank you. So it's not the freight not talking to you.
No, we haven't tried that yet.
No, that's good. That's promising. Thank you.
Marie-Louise.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say, well, thank you very much. And the quality of the consultation was really, really excellent. I thought the sort of attempt to engage, and no, there's like a background with the schools, but engaging with workplaces and so on to get us sort of that was really encouraging, and it will be great to see what more use can be made of that data. But it comes over much more strong than some others we've seen. So that's really great. Thank you. I'm contractually obliged to point out the possibilities for the park and ride at Oak Avenue for a bus to Twyford, which is something that my former residents, when Norreys extended that far, were very anxious to put forward as an idea, both for the use of that park and ride and to or car park and to relieve some of the pressure on Twyford, because for the reasons that we've talked about, it's obviously very difficult. And I wanted to ask about, we know there are these proposals to put business rates on EV charging points. And have you modelled how that would and would not affect take-up and things? Sorry.
That's fine. So I don't know whether you want to take the first one with buses first.
Within the transport network review, we did get asked an awful lot of buses to Twyford, and one of the options that we are looking at would be a route from the Park and Ride to Twyford Station, to Wokingham Station and up to Twyford Station, trying to pick up various points. But again, that will have to go to public consultation, and we're currently talking to all of the towns and parishes to work out what we can afford and what we can do, because none of these things come for free, unfortunately. Yeah.
And the simple answer for business rates on EV charging points is we haven't modelled anything. It would be bad, potentially. It would cost more, so it would cause us a problem, I think.
Shona.
With the charge points, installed charge points, how will you manage the performance and the reliability of them? How are they going to be monitored?
So all of those KPIs are in the contract that we've got with the new company. So they need to be up a certain percentage of the time, and they have a response time period depending on how urgent the fault is. So any dangerous fault would be within 2 hours, and that kind of thing. So all of those are in the contracts that would be managed by a contract manager, effectively.
Okay, I've got a question. Have you done anything? Have you looked at the possible impact of reducing speed limits on which we've just got a speed limit policy? Of that policy, implementing that policy on climate emergency, on the figures, as it were.
There's some good data from various other places of the impact of safer speed limits on the uptake of active travel in terms of the willingness of people to walk their children to school and to cycle. So we've looked at it in terms of others' experience. We haven't yet sought to model what difference it will make. But given that national data says that, forgive me, I don't remember the exact stats, all of the exact stats, but I think it's something like 60% of people consider it too unsafe to cycle on the road. We're not, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of creating or the space to create segregated cycleways everywhere. And so traffic speed is a key factor in that. So it's an important part of the overall to balance the speed limit policy and implementation so that we allow people to move on the trunk roads. Hopefully we will, over a period of time, create safe cycle routes alongside the trunk roads or as alternative to the trunk roads, whilst making the places where people start their journey, where people walk to primary schools, and where people want to end their journeys around town centres, village centres and so on, as well as single-track rural roads, which are important for some people to travel on. It's important to strike the balance between the ability of people to get around the borough in vehicles with the ability of people to get around safely via other means. So it's an important part of it. I say there is some good data, which I think we might have referenced in the presentation, but I can certainly send a note to the committee on the data that exists on that.
But have you got any data on the lower emissions from slower speeds?
There is, sorry, yes. Sorry, did I completely misinterpret your question? My apologies. Yeah, there is data. The man in the street often says, well, my car is most efficient at 56 mile an hour, so any speed limit below that is a bad thing. What actually burns fuel most of all is accelerating. And if you watch the little needles in your car, you'll see that. A generally lower speed limit means people tend to drive more smoothly and therefore accelerate less, and therefore most of the recent studies show that there is a benefit in terms of CO2 and other emissions. There's also a benefit in terms of reduced brake dust and tyre dust as well. So it's good for air quality as well as emissions. I think, having looked at a lot of the data myself, I think I can confidently say it doesn't make emissions any worse. And, there are lots of points of data that say it should make them better.
So can we get that into the CAP, or is it just not? I mean, if we're planning to reduce speed limits, then we could be saying, well, we're going to save this amount of emissions.
Yeah, I think we absolutely should. The policy needs to go to the executive, I believe, as a result of a discussion today, which will be in January. Came through ONS last week. So once the policy is approved, and as a part of what I said earlier on about increasing the contribution that modal shift and other things will make towards the target, yeah, we should certainly include that.
Well, thank you. Any more questions on the transport?
In the at the top about transport, it talks about EV and ICE, total combustion engine. Where does hybrid or plug-in hybrid sit? Does it sit within the EV column or the ICE column? Or have you ignored it completely?
So yeah, from my side, in the data, the hybrids are included within the EV figures primarily. We are looking at splitting the battery electric and plug-in hybrid if we can do it in a nice way in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it? Well, thank you very much to the officers and Adrian for coming along and presenting that. Thank you, and answering our questions. Okay, now we go on to agenda item 19, which is and we're doing this before the solar farms update, because there might be a part 2 of that. So we're bringing this forward. So agenda item 19, the work programme. Sorry, I can't remember what this is called, and it hasn't got a title. So, if I remember rightly, we've got a very busy meeting the next time. Is that what you were saying, Myri?
Yes, so for the January meeting, the plan is to bring retrofitting, the proposal on the strategy, the skills and training, and the ecological emergency. So that's for January, so that'd be 4 items. March is then looking quite busy. So I guess there's a bit of a question out to the committee if there's something specific that you'd like covered at the March meeting, because we will, I think for time, we can't cover everything that we've got in March, so we will have to take some items out. So yeah, a question for tonight is if there's anything that you brought to that March meeting.
Well, what's the most important thing to keep in March, I suppose, is the question, isn't it,
yeah.
really? Well, I would say we should keep the, sorry, go on.
Because in March, you've got the partnership working with towns, parishes and University of Reading. Could we take the University of Reading with the scrutinising working schools, colleges in January? Merge the two together? Or, you've got skills and training in January, and you've got the same with Reading University partnership. So I just wonder if you could take the Reading University with them at the same time? That help?
Yeah, I think we can definitely touch upon University of Reading as part of that update. And actually the partnerships, we could probably talk about that in the different items. So we could look at, integrating the other, any partnerships we have, we can bring that to the report, the specific report. So yeah, we could take that one out for March. I think that's a good shout and an update on the University of Reading as part of that skills and training update.
Thank you.
Was that a good idea, Caroline? Okay, any other observations about this? Okay, agenda item 20, action tracker. Page 39. Page 40. Okay. Anything to say? No? On to agenda item 21, solar farms project updates. And Sarah, okay, come to the table.
Well, maybe I can briefly introduce while the team's getting up here. And apologies, I'm late. This was ironically due to transport issues because there were delays on the line from Paddington to Twyford, and my husband didn't get home when he was meant to get home to take over care of the children, not just because I needed to say hello to him. For you tonight with the update on the solar generation, solar farms. So obviously Barkham Solar Farm is going to be a very key component of this, but just wanted to take a chance to step back for a moment. So yeah, these are both incredibly significant actions within the CAP. They are not as large as the transport emissions and the retrofit sort of domestic energy, but they are, shall we say, some of the ones that we as a council can have the most control over. So they have a huge climate benefit, but more than that, the way that I and the team are looking at this is very much its dual purpose. It's about climate, it's about energy security, and it's about generating revenue for the council. In my mind, when we're looking across the board at the CAP, the things to move fastest on, invest the most in, are not where it's not purely a charity, right? We're here to make a rational business decision, as acknowledging all the other benefits that come alongside the financial ones, and in doing so, being able to actually go further and faster, generate more renewable energy, and decarbonise our borough as quickly as possible. So, in the last, I guess, 5 years, there's been many changes, I guess, just sort of particularly drawing out the extreme volatility we saw in electricity markets through the invasion of Ukraine, the energy crisis, which perhaps going back in time probably flattered the economics of when we were looking at a solar investment. So as I like to say, in some ways, energy prices now coming down somewhat, well, a lot actually from that peak, might not be the best news when we're looking at investing in a solar farm, but it is good news for our businesses, for our residents, and for the council as a whole. So there's always that trade-off in place. We've seen the government come in the last just over a year with huge ambition in the electricity sector and heading towards Clean Power 2030. It's been a huge change, I think, and we're seeing that coming into play through the both looking at transmission and the investment that's needed in our transmission infrastructure, which to me says it's even more important than ever to invest in clean energy generation here in the southeast, where we actually consume a huge amount of power, but also the queue to join the grid. There's been a lot of reforms on that side, which the team can talk to in more detail if there are questions. So we are not working in isolation. There is a huge amount happening in the region, in the country, in the world, in this sector. And I think hopefully the update gives you lots of details on where we are now and how we're planning to move ahead. So on that, I'll hand over to the team, and I'm sure in due course we'll invite lots of questions.
Thank you, Catherine. It gave us enough time to get settled, so thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to just give a quick reference to the sort of commercial sensitivities and how we're going to manage that in this meeting, if that's okay. So you'll see that the information on Barkham Solar Farm in particular is presented in two parts. We have tried, in the interest of transparency and openness, to put as much information as we possibly can into the Part 1 paper to enable our residents to be able to see a clear and transparent update on the business case, and hope as far as possible we can retain the discussion in a Part 1 forum so that everybody can hear those updates. But you will appreciate that there are areas of the project and the business case where we are in active commercial negotiations with external organisations, in particularly in our conversations and negotiations with our contractor who is going to be building the solar farm, and also the commercial negotiations to come, particularly around the energy export strategy. To ensure that the council remains in its strongest commercial negotiating position, specific values and our cost and income forecasts are included in the Part 2 papers. And if required, when we get into conversation and questions, we will need to move into a Part 2 of this meeting to enable us to retain that commercial sensitivity and make sure that we're not disclosing things out into the public domain that may limit us going forward in the future. So our approach tonight is to start in Part 1, and we'll answer as many questions as possible in Part 1. But I'll indicate to you, Catherine, to the chair, where I think if there are questions that are of a commercially sensitive nature, and then I think if we can hold those questions, keep a note of them, and then if and when we go into Part 2, we can come back to those questions, if that's okay. So my colleague David Smith, who's our planning manager, is just going to do a very brief run through, a Part 1 run through of the paper and just some of the key points. Conscious it's a very long paper and this is quite a complex project. So David's just going to do a quick summary for us, and then we'll invite questions and see how we get on.
Can I just interrupt a minute? Yes, two of you haven't got a nameplate on. Yours is single-sided, and you've also got Alison's. Yeah, you haven't got a nameplate. Okay, thank you very much, Jim.
Sorry.
So thank you very much, everyone. So this paper is about the free solar farm project. That's Barkham Solar Farm 2, plus the Merrick Canopy scheme that we've got coming forward. I'll sort of come back to Barkham Solar Farm at the end of this section, but let's first run through the Solar Farm 2 update. So Solar Farm 2 is a specific action within the Climate Emergency Action Plan. Action 2.1.2. It's a large-scale solar farm anticipated to generate approximately 20 megawatt peak of energy. Site has been identified. We've done initial feasibility and options appraisals. We did get an initial grid connection offer from SSEN back in 2028, but that was later revised by SSEN to 2037 due to wider network upgrades that they require to undertake. But as part of the reform process within the industry to make sure that shovel-ready schemes can come forward in advance of more speculative schemes that haven't either got planning consent or don't own the land, then we are engaging with NESO around the Gate 2 application, it's called. So we submitted an application back in August around our ownership, demonstrating we own the land, which should accelerate us up the queue and hopefully bring our delivery date back in line with the Climate Emergency Action Plan date, ideally before 2030. And we're expecting to hear December on that as to whether we've been successful through that process. So whilst that is going on, further design work and planning is paused, and obviously we're going to need to manage the stakeholder engagement, particularly around sensitivities and the timeline uncertainty. Moving on to Mare Oak, so this is a solar canopy scheme over at the Mare Oak Park and Ride, which also includes an EV charging hub as part of the business case model. Again, a specific target within the CAP, so 2.1.3. Aligns with the council's asset management plan and economic strategy in making best use of the council's assets. We do have a grid connection offer for this site. We accepted that in December, and the business case for the project was approved back in January 2024. We entered into design contract with Vital Energy back in May, and they have submitted a planning application now, and we should be hearing back from the planners within this week or the next week. So that decision on that is imminent. And on that basis, subject to approval of the planning and the final business case approvals, we're looking for construction to commence early next year, so March through to November. And again, that project will reduce emissions, support EV uptake and enhance sustainable travel. So moving on to Barkham, again, a Climate Emergency Action Plan, Action 2.1.1. It's a 30 megawatt peak solar farm. We have a 25-year planning permission for the site, but the operational life is now generally accepted in the industry to be 30 to 40 years. And that's, again, set out in national policy around solar farms. And thought it was important to just remind you of the governance around this. So back in 2021, the original business case for the solar farm was approved. That went to exec and then committee in the summer, full council in the summer. And the final scheme delegates decision-making to Deputy Chief Executive, Section 151 officer, in conjunction with the lead member, providing the net income after financing costs remains above 200k per annum. And at that time, we were forecasting an 12 million net over the 25 years, which worked out about 440k per annum. And that would be introduced to the council's budgets via an equalisation reserve. Now, we did provide updates into overview and scrutiny back in October 22 and then earlier in 2021, and that was effectively around the peak of the energy crisis. And at that time, we were identifying potential revenues in excess of 2.2 million. And those forecasts were based on the market conditions at the time. Now, in the NTFP, we took a more prudent approach to financial planning, and we only included 1 million per year on average, in acknowledgement that those forecasts were particularly high. But as Catherine alluded to earlier, the market has stabilised since the 2022 energy crisis, and we shouldn't be expecting the same sort of returns as we were previously. Now, in terms of the business case, that's included in the Part 2 papers. There's a number of new facets that go into that. So you have the costs all feeding into it, and then the energy export strategy, so what we actually do with the electricity at the end of the model. So the main inputs that we're updating to this evening, which are included in part 2 paper, around the construction costs, the SSEN grid connection costs, and then we touch upon the energy export strategy. So for the purposes of the business model, we're using the merchant model, which assumes direct sale into to the electricity companies, but there are other options available that could have different outcomes for the council if we choose to follow those, and those include such things as corporate PPAs, leaving to ourselves, private wires, or contracts for difference. And we are evolving our energy offtake strategy, and we won't know for sure because the market won't engage with us until we're closer to the completion of the solar farm. So around autumn of next year, we should be really pinning down exactly what our energy offtake strategy is going to be for the site and exactly how we're going to receive our revenues and our income from the solar farm. So that's a bit further work that's ongoing at this moment in time. So in terms of the delivery programme, we're also here this evening for the business case update. And then the key date for us is to be in contract with the contractor by March of 26, and that's all based around a 52-week lead-in for the custom substation. So ideally, we need to be in contact with a contractor so that they can pre-order that so that we can meet our delivery date timeline for April 27, which is when we're looking for energisation of the solar farm. And as I mentioned, around autumn of next year, September 26 is when our negotiations for the energy offtake strategy and the procurement of the new WBC energy contract will coincide and marry up, and we can make those final decisions about what we're doing with the electricity. And then we're looking for practical completion summer 27. So in terms of the recommendation, the committee is asked to consider the updates on the progress of all 3 of the solar farms, and then obviously make recommendations as appropriate to lead member for Environment and Climate Emergency following consideration of the report.
Thank you, David. Now, we already have some questions from Moses. Would you like to read out your questions and then the officers can answer them in, whether they'll read out their answers or extemporise, I don't know, but have you got a copy of the questions?
Yes.
And we'll go through them one by one, and there might be some further discussion, I guess.
I mean, I can go through the questions if you haven't got a copy of them and just read them.
You can read them out if you want, David.
Yeah,
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question was around the project management model used for the project and what is the current management strategy. So the model we're using is a hybrid of internal governance, which comprises the cross-party project board and external consultancy oversight. So we have a technical advisor employed to advise us on the technical aspects, and we're also engaging further around the energy offtake strategy as well. So the current stage of the project is in the financial close stroke pre-construction stage, with planning and grid connection secured and business case refinement currently underway, which is where we are tonight. Second question was around the...
Does anyone want to follow up?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, David. The reason why I asked this question about this management stage is I'm really confused as to the delivery of this project, the time scale. So you said you had financial close pre-construction stage. Have you done detailed engineering and detailed design?
Yes, so we are just coming to the end of the pre-construction services agreement, which will be the detailed design, which will then allow us to enter into the full construction contract.
So the detailed engineering and detailed design is complete or yet to be complete?
It's 99% complete.
Okay, because I'm skeptical about delivery, because I'm just trying to look at here. So you have not even entered into equipment procurement and delivery yet. No?
So, no, we're in a pre-construction contract service agreement, and we have the ability to direct award the construction under the framework that we have entered into the pre-construction services agreement with, and that was part of the procurement model that was signed off by exec when that's forthcoming.
Okay, let me just tell you my expectations. I will expect the equipment procurement and delivery to take between 9 to 18 months. Yeah? And the actual construction and commission under 6 to 12 months. You are contemplating entering into a new contract before March, possibly. That leaves you with about 12 months. It seems unlikely to me that you'll be able to deliver spring 2027.
So I think the delivery programme has been advised to us with working with the contractor, looking at other schemes and with our technical advisor. Some of the dates are set to us, like the ordering of the substation. We know that's a 52-week lead-in, but the construction of the solar panels themselves in the field is not a particularly complex piece of construction that we need to do. So our delivery programme is based on other examples, the advice from our professionals, and we believe that that is a deliverable programming that we can do it in the 12 months from the contract. But the key is that entering into that contract by March 26 to enable us to put those orders in place.
Sarah, you just said 52-week duration before construction and commissioning. That means if you were going to enter into a new contract in March next year, you haven't got enough time to meet the spring 2027 because you will definitely overrun if actual delivery is 52 weeks. I'm just putting it out there.
Element that is on the 52-week lead-in time. So that's factored into a build programme that's been provided to us by Equans, who are the current contractor completing the PCSA. So they are confident that they can deliver by April 27, providing we can order that piece of kit by March.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is this report, you say you may not commit, you may need to retender. So if you have to retender, so if you're planning, surely you've got to allow for contingency in case you have to retender. So you shouldn't be saying you are working with a contractor that may not end up being the contractor.
So I think to just confirm where we are. So Equans are our design contractor at this moment, and we have a pre-construction services agreement with them. That brings them to a point of the project where we have detailed design, all of our plans, everything done. If with that detailed design, they also come with a cost that is acceptable to us and offers best value and is within budget, then the procurement strategy that we've signed up to allows us to direct award to Equans and they carry on and they build. If we get to a point where that cost is not acceptable, doesn't represent best value, and we need to go out to tender again, we've got a period of about 4 months to do that. That is quite short, but we would do it off a framework. So the team are working away at the moment to identify the appropriate frameworks that have the right contractors on for us, and we would do it through a framework appointment, which is much quicker than a traditional tender process where we go out to the market. It is a risk to the project, but it's a risk that we think is manageable, and it's really important to make sure that the project represents best value so that the price is right. So our ideal is that we go with the contractor that we have under the PCSA, but we need to make sure that that represents the right price. So there is a programme risk, but we feel that it's being managed and is deliverable. We're happy to share further information about kind of the detail of that construction programme and how that 12-month build process is formulated, if that would be helpful to the committee to help address that problem.
Yeah. And perhaps if I can just add, and obviously we are in the public meeting, I'm not going to be putting any numbers on costs. Perhaps if needed, we could pick that up in the part 2. But I think, yeah, absolutely, Moses, it is understood as a key, risk. We are in this place with Equans now. We can, very, very close to that final price from them. I guess, again, we can talk numbers perhaps in part 2, but I think the key is that if we are not confident that their quote represents best value for the council, looking at the other similar project quotes, market norms and so on, then I guess I don't think it is the right thing to pursue with a contract that is outside the market and will not deliver best value to the council. So the officers are working very fast to try and work out, okay, if we need to, how can we try to go back out to market with the clear aim of entering into that contract by March next year, which is it is a tight turnaround, but we understand from references to working with technical advisors who work on similar projects of this scale that it is feasible.
So, just to conclude, I'm not asking for numbers. I'm not talking numbers. I'm not talking money. I know it's part two. You are aware that I've expressed my concern about the delay with this project. I just don't think that enough allowance is being made for potential delay in sticking to a particular date. And you're talking about industry practice. I'm also quoting industry practice. If you have to change a contract in the next 3-4 months, you are not likely to deliver this project in 52 weeks. And that's what I'm asking the officers to take note of and for the committee to be aware.
Yeah, I think well noted. I guess I find some comfort in the fact that we are in this agreement with Equans. We, I guess, can pause for a while whilst we check whether or not that is the best value to the council. But at the end of the day, we'll be able to go ahead with that. And we know that contract is an option that we can trigger very quickly if we're confident that it represents the best value, both monetarily and programme schedule factors being taken into consideration.
The next question was around the annual solar degradation, assumed up to 25 years and then beyond 40 years. So for the purposes of the model, we've assumed 0.4% annual degradation, and that rate is consistent over the 40-year project lifetime. We are informed that most Tier 1 solar panel manufacturers quote degradation rates between 0.25% and 0.5%. So our assumption sits comfortably within that range, and if the project uses modern, high-efficiency panels with robust warranties and proper O&M, we feel that 0.4 rates is realistic. So applying a flat rate across the full life avoids unnecessary complexity and makes the model easier to audit and explain. So.
David, I'm also going to quote back to you. You say we are informed. Now, let me just read from here. Most high-quality solar panels are warranted to operate for 25 to 30 years and are expected to retain a significant amount of their original capacity. Annual degradation rate. The average rate is typically around 0.5 to 0.8% per year. Premium panels from top manufacturers may degrade as slowly as 0.25 to 0.4 annually, as premium. Tier 1 solar panel manufacturers generally quote very competitive degradation rates, reflecting improvements in technology. The warranty is typically split into an initial drop and subsequent annual rate over the panel's 25 to 30-year lifespan. After the first year, the performance loss stabilizes. The majority of Tier 1 performance warranties guarantee an annual degradation rate between 0.4 and 0.6% per year. The industry trend is moving towards the lower end of this range, with many competitive models quoting 0.4 to 0.5%. So again, I think your forecast is pretty optimistic, except you're going to deploy premium solar panels and it's been costed into the project.
Can I just ask, Moses, what you're quoting from when you...
I'm familiar with solar panels. Yeah, I'm reading to you what I think. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I'm reading to you because you said most Tier 1 solar panel manufacturers offer 0.25 to 0.5, and I'm saying that is applicable to premium solar panels. Standard solar panels will be higher degradation.
Okay, sorry. It's just
so the question I'm asking is, are you going to use premium solar panels? Because that will impact on the next question. Or are you going to use premium solar panels?
Sorry, my question was just, because you said you were quoting from something, so I just wondered what you were quoting from, if it was a document or guidelines or something.
No, it's standard industry expectation. you said you were informed about that is tier 1, and I'm saying this is what tier 1 is typically 0.4 to 0.6.
Okay. Well, the informed bit is from our advisors that we've got and the consultants that we have and the other schemes that we've looked at. So, and you're saying 0.4 to 0.6 and we're saying 0.25 to 0.5 and we're at 0.4. So we feel like we're in around the same area, but I'm just trying to understand where that figure's
Your 0.25 to 0.5 is for premium solar panels, which is not yet really in the market. The question I'm asking you is, will you be using premium solar panels that this 0.25, tier 1 solar panel manufacturers will offer 0.4 to 0.6. The question I'm asking is, will you be deploying premium solar panels on this project?
Moses, I think part of the question for asking where you're quoting from is, to try and understand, because tier 1 and premium are words that can be applied, but I think they're keen to understand what categorization, where has this categorization come from? Because, I'm sure it's a spectrum of the...
If you solar panels have their own data sheets, so and tier 1 solar panel at the top, yeah? So if you go to their data sheet, they will typically be 0.4 to 0.6, not 0.25 to 0.5. Premium will be 0.25 to 0.5, and the manufacturer of premium is just not more than 1 or 2 in the market yet.
Chair, I don't have that information to hand now, but we can take that back as a question and just make sure we're where we are on the scale and we can come back with a written answer to that.
Okay, that's all right. Then. Okay. Moses, any more? Or no? Okay, David.
So the next question was around the 40 years. What is the basis of 40 years when most solar manufacturers only offer 25-year solar power guarantee? So the response is that industry information provides strong evidence that solar panels will continue to generate electricity beyond the initial warranty periods. National Policy Statement for Renewable Energy, EN3, was published in November 23 and came into force in January 24. And paragraph 2.10.65 of that statement identifies that when considering the project lifetime, an upper limit of 40 years is typical. So that's the response.
Okay. David, I'm going to read to you from AI because I know these are validated. It is not yet typical or standard to analyze solar production over 40 years, but it is becoming increasingly relevant for high-quality premium solar panels. Because of the standard warranty and financing terms, most financial models and analyzed production reports are calculated over 25 to 30 years. And there's a table here which you can check online on AI. It says warranty length for standard typical is 25 to 30. Premium emerging solar panels, 40 years. Expected lifetime, standard, 30 to 35. Premium emerging solar panels, 40 plus years. Annualized production period, standard, typical, 25 to 30 years. Premium emerging, 30 to 40 years. Industry practice is standard, typical, is usual. Premium emerging is unusual but growing.
So I think the move to the 40 years is to really help us understand that the way that the industry and the technology has progressed since we started this project in 2021, when we have a 25-year planning consent for it, and that technology has improved. So our view is now, and again, taking examples from other case studies and what our advisors and the industry is telling us, is that that technology can now last for a longer period than 25 years, 30, 35, 40 years. So we don't want to be in a position where we are saying at the end of 25 years, because it's 25 years, an asset that could still be working and still exporting energy for us, we're just going to take that asset away because it's 25 years. So we're trying to reflect how the technology and the industry is developing as this project is developing. And we feel that 40 years is now a more industry norm and what the technology in the industry is telling us we can do. But just to be clear, our consent is still only for 25 years, and we feel it's a reasonable assumption that we could have that planning consent extended in due course. We haven't had time to do that at this point because it requires a whole new planning application, which includes an environmental impact assessment, which is quite a lengthy process to go through. But for the purposes of the business case, we have assumed 40 years, and we think that is reasonable. There's obviously a specific question about the technology that is being used and whether it's premium or not, which, as per the previous question, we'll come back with some more detail on that. But that's the rationale behind the move to 40 years.
You're not just being optimistic.
No, or reckless. It is in line with the national policy and the guidelines that we're working to.
I think, Sarah, you're probably confusing warranty period versus useful life. Nobody is saying solar panels cannot be there for 30 to 40 years. But it is when you are modeling for uncertainty, it's difficult. Your planning horizon of 40 years, I don't want to talk about it, part two. The reason why people say 25, I'm not telling that solar panels you must decommission after 25 years. I'm saying for planning and financial modeling, what is standard industry practice is 25 to 30 years now. But the going to 40 years, I think you need to go back to the point. Going to 40 years is because technology has improved and they are beginning to what they call premium solar. That's what I'm telling you the difference. I'm not saying you will decommission after 25 years. I'm just saying that what is standard industry practice? And the next question we will come to the insurance implication. I'm just saying, if you are planning for returns, you want to be not to be overly optimistic. Because if the technology you are relying on for 40 years is not tested rigorously, and you put it out there, it's like sometimes you are using Windows 10, and they say there's Windows 11. You take most companies won't go straight to Windows 11. They will take time. So I'm saying, I'm not asking you to be risk averse. I'm just asking you that we need to be more realistic when we are spending public money.
Can I ask a clarifying question back to you, Moses? So I think that was really clear in terms of there is a difference between the period that may be on the warranty, which obviously can be looked into and that will be clearly defined, with then the life, and then where perhaps between that spectrum we feel is prudent from a financial modelling point of view. So I guess the technology is evolving, but even under previous technology, we are now seeing evidence of solar installations, even using older technologies, still lasting much, much longer. So I think that's where, trying to bring this forward, and we've looked at what other local authorities have done as well, in terms of the time periods they've been looking at, and perhaps, Sarah, I know it's Katie who did most of that work, perhaps you could speak to that in a moment, but I think that is where we're trying to strike that balance between, they could last further, but, and I guess that's where we're trying to find is we don't want to be too optimistic and just pretend everything's going to be fantastic. And there are some elements you'll see in the model around, yes, we know we would need to replace the inverters, and, a fairly middle ground assumption on, planning for those costs. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are using our council assets, including the land and whatever we pay for the panels and so on, to the best of its ability to generate, use that full life. So I think that's where, based on the advice we've been receiving over the last but particularly the last 6 months, has been, this is realistic. This is where the panels, under conditions of appropriate maintenance and so on, that 40 years is absolutely realistic. And so when we're considering the business case, that's the lens that we're now planning for, because it does have other impacts in terms of looking at, we are going to have to look at the planning the actual planning permission. How do we sequence that in as well? So I guess it's potentially a question back, and obviously this question session is useful, but to form that opinion. But yeah, if the committee and members feel that is it that you think that this 40-year assumption is being too optimistic, I guess is my question.
I thought I'm the ones who are supposed to be asking the questions. I'm just saying, Catherine, is if you say other local authorities, it would be interesting to know those local authorities and what technology they've deployed. So I'm saying the practice is moving towards those kind of things that can guarantee. Let me repeat, there's a difference between guarantee and useful life. Emerging technologies are guaranteeing 40 years. For example, you won't have issues. Existing ones are saying 25 to 30. So if this project anticipates that you are going to use those premium emerging technology, then fine. But if you've not allowed for that, and you discover that they cost more than what you based your modeling on, then that is where I'm saying, if you're doing a business case, because I think we are still maybe at not maybe updated business case yet, I will err on the side of caution and not predict a higher return that I may not get. That's the point I'm trying to make.
So, but just to be clear, you're not saying that your view, and this is the committee's view to scrutinise and give recommendations, would be to solely limit it to the warranty period, because I think that's something we need to clarify is exactly where that would be. But I think my understanding is that we would be willing to consider modelling somewhat beyond the warranty period if there's sort of strong grounds to do so.
Okay, want to go on?
Okay, the next question was around a recent High Court ruling, which only supports solar farms designs that ensure energy output for up to 30 years. Is the extrapolation to 40 years for planning purposes not likely to have negative legal implications, particularly regarding ensuring the asset beyond 25 years? So we've reviewed the High Court ruling, and from my reading, the case was focused on overplanting, which is installing more solar panels than the grid connection allows for, and whether this was consistent with the national policy statement. The ruling, as far as I can see, does not limit solar farm designs to 30 years, nor does it prohibit planning application from model energy output over 40 years, and EN3, the national planning policy statement, sets out the upper limit of 40 years as typical. On insurance beyond 25 years, well, panel royalties and insurance products are structured around 25 to 30 years. This is not a legal limit. Insurance for assets beyond 25 years will be available. That may require enhanced risk management or bespoke terms, which will need to be addressed through procurement and asset management planning. And we believe that the 40-year model used in the Barkham Solar Farm is legally sound, policy compliant, and reflects industry practice, and it allows for the council to maximise long-term value and align with our net zero strategy while ensuring that all impacts are transparently assessed and managed.
Thank you. Moses?
One. It's interesting here. This is the point I'm trying to make. It says the N3 explicitly sets out an upper limit of 40 years. That's what I'm saying. I won't be planning for the upper limit. I'll be more realistic. But the question I want to ask is, you've admitted, it says here, insurance for assets beyond 25 years will be available, though it may require enhanced risk management or bespoke terms. What would be the implication of the council if you're looking for bespoke insurance?
Sorry, Moses, I was just clarifying something with David while you just finished your question. Could you just ask your question again? Sorry, the last bit.
My question is, you said here, or it's stated here, insurance for assets beyond 25 years will be available, though it may require enhanced risk management or bespoke terms, which will need to be addressed through procurement and asset management planning. So I'm saying, what is the implication for the council if you have to be requiring bespoke insurance terms?
I think we just need to take that one back. We didn't have time to consult with our insurance team specifically, so I'm not going to profess to be any expert on insurance of solar panels. If I can take that one back and we can provide an answer, that would be good.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Sarah. Caroline?
Thank you. On a totally different thing, we have solar panels at home and we have an app which my husband loves looking at. So when the Barkham solar farm comes up, can we have an app for all our residents to see how much money we are? And I've given you plenty of time to get it worked out because I'm sure it's quite easy. Thank you.
I'm sure we can. I'm not sure if it will be an individual app on people's phones or somewhere on the website, but somewhere where it will be really important for us to be able to show.
Yeah, I was going to say on their major website for us to look at. I didn't mean on each phone. Sorry, that's too much information, but it'd be lovely to see, especially the savings we are making. Thank you.
I've got a question about Mare Oak. It probably isn't part of the business case, but I'm curious about using the electricity generated there, actually there for solar charging of cars. And I don't know whether you've, forgive me if this is in the planning application, because I don't think it is.
It's not in the planning application, though, although it is in the business case, and there's an element of reuse of that electricity to charge cars. But it won't use all of the electricity that we generate there, so we will need to retail some of that into the grid. For the purposes of the business model, we've used the merchant model again, but there will be discussions around exactly how we retail that energy into the grid as part of the wider discussion that we're having on the other elements.
And it'll be more than just the two that are there that never seem to work.
Oh, yes. So we, at the moment, the business case envisages initial provision of 4 and 6, so 4 rapid chargers and 6 trickle chargers from year 1, which will pick up the rapid chargers for so people coming off the motorway that want to charge quickly, and the trickle chargers that will pick up the people using the park and ride. And then it increases over time, over the years, as we anticipate EV usage will increase, and to encourage that usage once it becomes established.
Okay, yeah, I thought the trickle charging would be useful in a park and ride. Yeah. Caroline?
Just a quick question. You've come to future strategy, you've got battery storage readiness. When are you going to start considering those? I know it says a separate business case, but I do think it would be great to have a battery storage there.
Is this for Barkham? Barkham, yes. So the solar panels and the solar farm has been designed to be battery ready. So effectively that could be provided at a point in the future. At the moment, the grid connection offer we've got from SSEN does not include battery storage. So we would need to go back and agree that with SSEN. There is a big upfront cost for battery storage, quite considerable capital expenditure if we were to go down that route. But at the same time, so we could create a business case around that once, if we can get that agreement with SSEN. Or alternatively, there's options around co-location with maybe a third party comes in, locates the batteries there, and we have some sort of leasing or tenancy agreement with them as part of the farm. So though it's future-proofed into the design, and we'd need to look at that a bit further if that offers a positive return or positive financial benefit to the council to pursue that.
Moses?
So, just a quick question, David. You said engineering and detailed design is 99% complete. Do you by any chance know the solar brand of solar panels you'll be using for this project, the manufacturer?
I don't have the details to hand. I'd need to double check with our technical advisor.
Okay.
Yeah, you produce a written answer for that. Yeah, thanks. Okay, any more questions? I guess we're going to go into part 2 for Moses's other questions. Yeah? Yes. So, have we?
Yeah,
Sarah?
I think it's if the committee want to go into part 2 for that, we've provided the written answers, and I think everybody's had them. So it's sorry, Neil, I don't mean to do your job.
Okay, so it's a question of, are there any questions on the answers to the Moses questions on part 2?
Chair, just before you do that, can I just say that if we're going into part 2, we need to move the exclusion motion?
Right, so, yeah, but we just need to decide whether we're going to go into part 2.
Yes.
So I guess I need a show of hands. I mean, anybody who's got a question? Right, Moses has, so we will do that. Sorry, I'm boring.
Have we covered all part 1 questions?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so do I read all this out?
Please.
To determine whether the item will take place in public or private session, the committee may exclude the press and public in order to discuss any part 2 issues. To do so, the committee must pass a resolution in the following terms: that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act as amended, as appropriate.
Do you need a second?
Yes, I think we need a Beth. Thank you, Beth. Quick show of hands on that. Everybody, thank you. Okay. Neil.
So if you just bear with me, I'll just double check that we aren't still streaming. Now we've gone into part 2. Just bear with me.